In this season at Level Up Stronger, we're speaking with women across the globe who have found careers in male-dominated trades industries. It's often hard for women to see themselves in these male-dominated careers, but there are a whole lot of kick-ass women who are not only working in trades, but thriving. So we explore how they got there, what it's like now, and get their advice on how to get started. In today's podcast, we meet Nikki Nobel, a 20-year veteran in the welding industry. Nikki has an entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps her best superpower, other than being a mom and running a farm, is teaching the next generation of welders. Welcome, Nikki, to the show. Let's jump right in. Why can we not start helping women realize that these careers and industries are things that they can do, but also they can really make really good money?
Exactly. I think that's one thing that people just are not aware of is they're not exposed to those opportunities. And then they just think, because they heard it from so-and-so, and they just didn't even realize that was an opportunity. Even for some people who actually get into welding in our school, the first day, I actually give them a list of not even all of them, but I give them a good chunk of jobs that a welder would be exposed to or had an opportunity to do. And they look at that list, they're like, oh, I thought it was just like Boilermaker or pipe fitter. I'm like, oh, little do you know. Yeah. So that's one huge thing is awareness. And they don't put enough. I sound like it's a blame game to the high schools and elementary schools, but realistically, it's not, because they are exposing them now, especially in the last 5 years, but they're not doing it to the details of the opportunities. Like, don't you think high school should just be nothing but career exploration?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, you have to know your math, and yes, you have to know your sciences, and but don't you think at least one course minimum of semester, they have to be, it's just career exploration. They should already start working on their resumes. They should already start working on those things, because then they kind of cater towards what is up? What can I do? Take your kid to work day. Doesn't that only just happen once in grade 9?
It does. It's really
Why
bad.
does it not happen at least once every term? And it's not just your parent. You have an opportunity to go with somebody else, and it's a force to be exposed to.
Absolutely.
So I just think for me in my position, coordinator and professor of welding here at our community college, and the moment I meet any young individuals, not even just in our program, they are just oblivious to the opportunities. They paid and signed up for this program because they think they want to do it. And I'm like, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And they're like, get a job that pays you money. I'm like, where do you want to live? That makes a huge impact on how much money you're going to make, because oil fields is one thing in one area and it's a different thing in another area. Even MIG welding is a huge dramatic pay from one place to the other place, right? So so that's just in my little exposure for my opportunities here or in my position, right?
Absolutely. And I read the stats on the number of welders who are women was less than 3%, which is, you see that who do you see coming through? Because you're a professor, right? So who do you see coming through the classes? Are we seeing more women start to do that, or is it still skewed heavily towards men?
It is male dominated for sure, 100%. I would definitely say every year I see a little bit more inclined to females coming into the programs, but it's not enough. Realistically, last year I had 9 females start out of 40, and I'm like, that's amazing.
That is
my
amazing.
God.
Yeah.
Then by the time we got to the second term, we had a couple drop out. We had a couple of personal issues that in the second term, they didn't complete it. But we had the same idea that happened with the males as well. So yes, on a good note, there is a more incline that's happening, but it doesn't make me treat it any different, realistically. Yeah. I'm still going to say the same kind of comments and reviews to male or female or between, regardless of it. But again, it's exposure. And most of the females that are taking the programs are doing it either because their uncle or their dad or somebody that they know told them this would be a great opportunity, and they weren't aware that they don't even know. They're like, I kind of did a little bit in high school, but I wasn't really sure because high school wasn't a welding class. It was like an automotive class or a mechanical class where they did a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? So they still weren't even sure. And here they're paying a couple grand just to be in a college program, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, do you find that women have more challenges, or what's preventing these ladies from being successful and following through?
Exposure. Going back right to the beginning, I think a lot of the times, and this is a male or female discussion, is they don't know what to expect. They don't know the criticism that gets involved in it. Like, some people just are not physically good at doing it. And practice makes perfect, over and over and over and repeating again. And some people just can't be by themselves. They don't understand that, like, behind me, I have my backdrop here of the welding booths. And for someone to sit in a welding booth and not have their music on and not have anybody in that booth other than the instructor talking to them, that is a big thing that throws people off as well. Now, it doesn't mean that that's what they're doing 24/7 in a welding shop. There is fabrication that you're doing teamwork with, but a bulk of the welding, it is independent, and you got to learn how to troubleshoot your welding machine. You need to know about your cables and your polarity. And how often I get guaranteed several times a week, oh, Nikki, the rod won't actually stick and stay in the stinger. Can you help me? I'm like, we've already went through how to take it apart and to clean it out and put it back together again. Like, you should know these things by now. But I think what's holding these females back is just that intimidation factor, I think, of just, I don't know what is there. I don't know what is next. So having someone like myself sitting there as a mentor, showing them, hey, listen, this is my full-time job, but I also run a business outside of here. I used to do more fabrication back when I had more time, but now I do more into the art only with a little bit of fab here and there. And then I run a full farm and I have a toddler as well. So my schedule is crazy busy as always, but I like to be that mentor to any individuals, not just ones that I have at my school, just to say, listen, you can do it. How much passion do you want to put into it? What is your life goals? Do you see yourself working for yourself, or do you see yourself working for someone else? Because to me, the college is the only other place I'd want to work for. If I wasn't at the college at this point of my career, I think I just want to work for myself, because I like being my own boss. I'm very comfortable with myself and who I am. I'm very confident in my work and what I put forward. I've done quotes, I've done all this stuff. But again, I'm 20 years into it. I think I knew that decision about 7 years ago, that my daughter's going to be 6 next month. But I said to my husband, you know what? I don't think I want to work for anybody else. I think if anyone called me again, maybe the college, because I love teaching. I love exposing people to the opportunities and customizing that person. I think that's my calling. I am a coordinator. I'm very OCD organized type style. That's me to a T, working on syllabuses and designing course curriculums and even welding projects to make sure that every box is ticked and they learn each kind of process. That's very much me. But if I wasn't here, I'd just be full-time for myself, because I'm very comfortable and happy with what I do.
So let's rewind 20 years ago. What made you decide to get into this industry? What was it that drew you to it, and what challenges did you face?
Well, the first thing that started me 20 years ago was I was exposed to a career opportunity show. So they had us in high school. We went to the YMCA, and they had a career fair. So they had all the booths set up, and every single career had a different little setup going on. And I went to a TIG setup. So it was actually my friend's dad who was working for the local union, and he had a TIG setup, and I didn't know anything. I just saw the bright light, and I was like a moth to the light. I was like, ooh, what is that?
What's that?
So I went over there, and he showed me, actually, oh, I should have brought it. I still have my little pieces that I did, but he showed me, and he's like, hey, just do this. And then I did it. And he looked, he's like, oh my God, you're better than some guys that have been in it for years on end. Oh my God. And so he gave me that boost of confidence, and I just didn't, I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. And then my boyfriend at the time was doing a frame off restoration on a 68 Beaumont. And he was more the mechanic, and he did not care about the sheet metal and doing the body work on it. He wanted the motors. He wanted to do that part of it.
Sure.
And coming back to that career fair, I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it out. And it was MIG welding, but I had to prove myself. So to prove myself to him, I had to weld a lunchbox, and I made this. I still have it, and it looks horrible. And I actually filled it up with caulking on the inside. That's how bad my welds were. but I didn't know anything. I didn't have anyone show me any of that stuff. So yeah, I made this thing. He was like, yeah, that works. That'd be good. And then as I was working on this project with him, I learned more and more. I had porosity at the time. I didn't know what that was, but there's bubbles in my weld. That's not right. I'm going to grind that out and I'm going to do it again because it just doesn't look right. So I became my own inspector before I even knew that was what profile I need to look for, what kind of outcome I need to be. And then from there, I told my parents that's something that I really like doing, I really want to do. And the very traditional background. My dad's Sicilian and my mom's from Holland. And it's just not something that they were normalized with. And so they said, why don't you have a backup? Why don't you go to school for business? Because again, back then I knew I wanted to be my own boss. I'm just that creative brain. And I said, you never go wrong with business, no matter what, whether you work for yourself or you work for somebody else, having that business background was something that nobody could ever take. Well, nobody could ever take any education away from you, period.
Sure.
But back when you're 18, you still are figuring out life, right? So I did a 2-year diploma program. I hated it after the first month. So my parents set me up with a guy that built all of their stairs for their beach. And it was all steel. He had his own fabrication set up. They called him and they're like, hey, would you ever want any kind of helper or any kind of, like, our daughter's really interested in it and we don't know anything else. And he's like, yeah, bring her to XYZ and we'll see. And I go meet this guy back at 18 as well. And he's like, go do this weld here. And I worked on a hopper and it was starting to rain. And here I'm with a stick welder and I'm putting a fillet weld in. It was in the horizontal. I put a fillet weld in and he looks at it. He's like, damn, you haven't gone to school for welding, right? I'm like, nope. He's like, nobody's ever showed you this before. I'm like, no. I was like, I've been doing it for a couple of years just with my boyfriend and just like what I've been exposed to, but no, not stick welding. I just been doing this and this. He's like, okay, you're hired, number one. And number two, can you stay and work on this with me? And his knees were starting to go and things like that. I was like, oh my God, yeah. So then, yeah, I ended up working with him part-time while I was still in school for business. I finished my business school, then I worked with him full-time. And because of my business, I helped him out with his business. As I was learning, this guy's had his business for so long. So he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about dividends. I forgot about the work, right? So it was really cool to tie the two in. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
No, that's great. So what were the challenges that you faced? One of the key, I think, takeaways that in talking with the other welder was that she really felt like she had to work or put in 10 times more effort just to be seen as equal to, because there's already this perception walking into a shop that because you're a girl, you can't do it. Have you seen that, experienced that?
Yeah, actually 110% of every single job I've ever been at, except for that first one. Mm-hmm. So that first one, that employer that I worked for had never hired a female ever before. And me doing that weld, they didn't know anything about me, right? It was just a job that they did on the beach for somebody else. And they said, hey, can you? And so working for him, he actually didn't want to hire another male ever again because of the impact I made, because I was so OCD. I helped organize this thing. And my Picky Nikki, the nickname came out because he made me become so meticulous in the work that I did that I wouldn't say we were treated as equal because I was a lot younger and I had so much to learn. And he was a harsh type of person. So most people would have been offended and most people would have, but to me, I wasn't at all. I laughed. Like, you could be as crude as possible. I'm usually the one who got written up at all my places that I worked at. And yeah, he was the only place that I ever been to that I felt accepted. But no, even now, this job that I have right now, every single job since then, I have my battles. I have my challenges. I have to work 10 times harder for what I have to do, which makes it bull because buddy beside me is getting rewarded for crap. And yet I'm doing better and the inspector's approving it. And yet how come he gets to travel and I don't? Oh, because we can't accommodate you to being in the same bedrooms like we can with these guys. Oh, so I'm going to cost you more money if I travel doing that then. Okay. Did you even so just some of it was a lot of bull, but realistically, Yeah, I know I worked at one job and it took normally 5 days and 2 to 3 people to do this particular job. And it was my first job ever doing at this place, or first task, I should say, at this place. And I didn't know that it took 5 days with 2 to 3 people. I just was handed the blueprint. Here's the material sitting on a pallet, go do it. And so I cried every night going home, but I got to work and I just put my head down and I did it. I did it in 2 days by myself.
Awesome.
They did it on purpose to take me down and to beat me up. And I bawled at home because I didn't want anyone to see that I was getting taken down. But I sucked it up buttercup and I did what I had to do and I did it even better. And there was even like a steering flange upgrade that we had to do. And again, it took 3 days and one person to do it, but 3 days for them to do it. And there was a lot of steps and procedures to do it. And the first time I did it, I already did it in 2 days instead of 3. Then the second one that they did, again, it took me about a little over a day and a half, just getting to the 2. Then the third day, it took me a day. Then they started getting pissed at me because I was going too quick, but the quality was still there. And then they kept on saying, oh, sugar, hey, cupcake, don't work yourself out of a job. And I'm like, you guys are really slacking. And like, I'm starting to chirp them now. And then I was like, oh, okay. So then I found that happy medium. Like, all right, if I do it in 2 days, then everybody wins. I'm still faster than the other guys, but I'm still not too fast and I'm working myself out of a job. Yeah. So always battles everywhere I go.
I think that's really good advice to go home and cry. Yes. I've noticed, like, yes. We do have to be very careful in a male-dominated industry that you are not overly feminine in the reality. It's the reality of being in an industry where you're working with mostly men. Men are taught don't cry. So then when women come in and they cry, like it's unfortunate.
It's hard to choke back those emotions. And I'm very harsh with my personality. I'm very harsh with emotions. We weren't embraced for crying. That wasn't how I was raised. And so taking that emotion took a little bit more of a mental hit on me too, because I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I know other people are going to familiarize themselves with that, being like, you're not good enough. But realistically, the part I have to be dramatically thankful for now is social media, because I normally hated it in the past. But hey, you and I found each other because of social media. And it wasn't anything that I was seeking you and you weren't seeking me. It just became a, hey guys, I'm looking, oh, okay, I have interest. I just so happened to scroll my phone that day and finding your people and finding what helps support you. And today and yesterday, I helped build a girl's resume that is located actually an hour away from me, who I didn't even know. And I helped her with her resume, and I didn't know her from Adam, but I never had that when I started. So for someone to take their time and do that for me, I'm embarrassed back when my resume was the way that it was, because I didn't have the proper support. Even though I went to school for business, the person that I took during the business courses for job search and success didn't know trades resumes. They have a different look on them. They didn't know the acronyms. They didn't know how it should be displayed differently than a typical other HR type resume. So taking those emotions back, choking them back, knowing your support, knowing that there's people out there that will help you. I have phone conversations all the time with random people just to, what did you do? How did you do things? I want to go do this. And being in my position here at the college, I have such that broad aspect of, I've worked as a welder fabricator for majority of my career, but a lot of my work fell into working for the unions, and we did work for them. And I worked actually as a union member for a little while as well. And then it wasn't my cup of tea. And so I went back to working for myself again until this college gig came up. And so again, just having that support is so important nowadays. I wish more people reached out. And that's what I say to students and people interested, saying, okay, what is your interest? Type that in the search column. See what comes up. Join the groups. Say, hey, I'm new here. What is a pro and a con in your personal workspace that you wish you knew when you first started out? And sometimes it might seem repetitive to some people. To those people, then don't answer it, scroll on. But to the other people that want to reach out, I wish I knew certain things starting out. And I wish I didn't know certain things starting out.
Well, and I think the social media, you're right. Social media more than ever before gives us a window into things that we would have never seen before. Because if we flash back, because we're probably about the same age. If you flash back 20 years, there weren't women readily available to see in these positions. Like you had to dig really far. And then social media has kind of leveled that playing field that now you can see people like you in any career choice that you decide if you dig far enough, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important for women also then, because there's not enough at 3%, less than 3% of the welders, the women who are welders and are succeeding in that, like you have to be able to reach back and help mentor the other girls who are coming up or anybody who is looking for a potential change in career or ability to be successful. So I want to ask you, since you are in a very strategic position as a professor, if somebody wants to get into welding, you started out apprenticing for somebody, right? So did you ever go to welding school or did you learn everything on the job? And what would be the better way to do it? What do you think?
Oh, but you know what? That answer is very loose because it really depends on where you're located. It depends on what the opportunities are around you. It depends on, like for me, that opportunity was amazing for me because I had someone who wanted me to support them as well, right? And so I didn't have a plan at all. I just went with my gut on, I like this. I think this is really cool. I want to continue with it. So then when I went to school, I actually didn't go to this school. I went to a vocational school because I still was not sure, because the number one thing was going back to my parents and going back to non-support. I didn't know, and I didn't want to sink $20,000 on sign up for a full program on something that I might hate again after a month, like I did with business, but I didn't give up on business. I did the full 2 years. But with this one, I had an option that I can go in for 2.5 weeks. And if I didn't like it, I'm going to, whatever. Thanks for coming out, all that. So then what I ended up doing was I took the entire program, but I did it section by section.
Oh, awesome.
So I went, okay, I'm going to try this one out. If I like it, we're good. Okay. Oh, now I'm going to try this one out. If I like it, we're good. Okay. I'm going to try this one out. Okay. And yeah, I did it. And I actually did more of it because of the fact that I was able to customize to it. And so there was some gaps when I was in welding school that the way that they signed it up was they signed it up for how many hours to the next test day. So if they knew there was going to be a CWB test, are you American based or Canada based?
America.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. Time change. Haha. So in Canada, you guys have the AWS, and that is a single member party. You go to a workplace, the AWS inspectors, in-house ticketing, approving you to do those jobs. Sure. In Canada, we also have in-house testing, but we have a third party called Canadian Welding Bureau, which I'm not sure if you've heard of or not. And a lot of companies enjoy CWBs because it's them saving money to not have to hire an inspector full time. If we know we can hire these guys and have them CWB certified, then once a year we have the inspector come in to recertify their tickets. Then we save ourselves money in the long run. So the way that I went to school was they would book everybody that many hours until the next test day, and they tested every 5 weeks. So then I'd have sometimes like a week or two off of no school. So then I'd work full time for the buddy that started with me. Oh, okay, now I'm back to school again. Oh, I can only come work with you from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock that day, or whatever the case is. So I trickled through welding school that way. I can't even say that I regret it because I didn't know this was going to be the path that put me in the position I am now. But if I had to go back and do it again, knowing this was the outcome that I am now, I would have gone through a legitimate apprenticeship. I would have gone through legitimate schooling. So like vocational school is nice to try out a couple tickets here and there, but taking a full program, getting all these tickets, a lot of employers don't give two shits. Pardon my French. They don't care. They're like, you know what? Just like AWS, we will in-house you for the stuff that we are doing in this place. I don't care if you let the other stuff expire. This is what I need you to do. Your TSSA is non-transferable anyways. So you're going to be retesting it regardless. Yep. What I regret was the theoretical. And that's the part that I push on our students more. There's no hardcore theory in vocational schooling. And I'm not putting down all the schools out there because I know there's theory involved, but not to the extensive impact like a community college would be, or like an apprenticeship would be in that case too, right? But not every company hires on apprentices right away. So you need to start somewhere. right?
Yeah, which I guess you could be apprenticing and working, right, at the same
Yep.
time, or at least getting some on the job experience at the same time, which I think is great, is why trades are awesome because you can actually be working and going to school simultaneously and making some money to support yourself.
Yeah.
What is school costing? Like, if somebody wanted to go into that, like a ballpark, how much time does it take? And what's the ballpark figure on? Because college now, I mean, college is $40,000 plus, and it's a 4 to 5, sometimes 6 year commitment or more, depending on what you're doing. And it's hard to go back to school or.
Yeah. So for here in Canada, prices obviously are a little bit different than currency. But for here, a typical vocational school. So I actually worked for 5 years at a vocational school. I taught there. At the place that I went to. I got hired on several years after I graduated that program, and they hired me on because I was a female and I was young. Sure. So they actually took me on for those reasons because I could relate a lot to the students coming in. And it was a great opportunity. And I love, that's where my calling came from. And I'm like, oh my God, I love teaching. But I didn't have enough years under my belt as a welder in the field. So that's why I ended up leaving there, getting more years, coming back, teaching for a little bit longer, and then going back out again. But anyways, that doesn't answer your question. Vocational school is sitting at a big bottom dollar. You're sitting at about $20,000 and you're under a year. You're about an 8-month type, 10-month program, and it's a heavy dollar. Reason being is you are in a booth all day long. Or even like 4 to 5 hours a day, you're in a booth. So the costs of steel and consumables and the hydro and maintenance, it makes sense of why those costs are dramatically the way they are. But again, what are your end goals? Are you looking to get a whole bunch of tickets? Are you just looking to get burn time? What's your end goal of that? And then community college, for instance, in Canada, we're sitting about $4,000 a year. And so when I say a year, here at this college is 7 weeks on, 1 week off, 7 weeks on, a month off, 7 weeks on, 1 week, 7 weeks on. So 28 weeks in total. And that's about $4,000. We have a college a couple hours away from us, which we promote students to continue education because our college here only has a 1-year program for welding only. We have a 2-year program for the millwright program, but only 1 year for welding because our demand is so high. Students find work after that 28 weeks.
Wow.
So they're like, we don't have any reason to have a 2nd-year program because the retention we don't even have because they're out working. Okay. They found work with their apprenticeships. They found work as a fab shop worker, whatever the case is. So in our local area, because we have the chemical valley here, it's such a high union demand that we get the work. We have a high fabrication shop as well, but it's not in the production side of things. So pay-wise, it's not the same. But just down the road, a couple hours away, they have up to 3-year programs. And that's going to be your technician. That's going to be your engineering technician. That's going to be your robotics. That's going to be a little bit more in depth of the welding on that end. But because it's 3 hours away, now we're looking on the weight of processes. So over in that direction, it's more automotive, it's more production. You're looking at flux core and hardwire a lot more often. As here, we are Chemical Valley. We are all stick. Yes, there's TIG. Absolutely. Yes, there's Inconel. Yes, there's MIG, but not as high demand as 7018 roots and 6010 roots and pipe welding and vessels. And that's kind of where our demand is in this area.
What would you say the average salary of somebody coming out of school? Because this is an area that's very in high demand, right? And so in a lot of places, especially here in the United States even, what would you say is the average starting salary of somebody like after they've gone through a year of schooling?
That's such a loose answer because like I said, like if they stayed in our local area where I'm at here, you can get as low as like an $18 an hour job at a fab shop, at a mom pop shop. But then you can also get hired on 2 seconds down the road as a level 1 apprentice and you're making $25 an hour to start. And again, this is going on Canadian currency. And then salary wise, it's kind of hard to look at it at salary, but salary wise, you're looking at your 60, 80, and that's pretty comfortable wage for some people to start. Every time you go at your level for your apprenticeship, you're looking at a little bit more of a chunk, right? We have a local shop here that starts at $34 an hour. And that's non-union. and that's a fab shop. And so our students are like all over that place, but their testing procedures to even get in are so critical that they're getting a fraction of people actually being successful because of what they call on their testing procedure. No wonder why the wage is the way that it is. Yeah, we can't let any kind of Joe Blow come in, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you say has been the most surprising or rewarding part of a career in welding for you, or even as a professor?
So for me in this position, my most rewarding is, like, yesterday was awesome. Student success is my most rewarding. Even like on a daily basis in the shop, seeing student progression is so rewarding to me. I eat it up. Like, I love it so much. So yesterday I just said, I had a student who graduated last year and social media messaged me through Instagram and said, hey, what do you think of this? And sent me a picture. And immediately I wanted to critique it and be like, oh, I'm like, the picture's blurry. But lo and behold, he got on with the iron workers and was working construction here on site because we're doing renovations here at the college. And so I was like, right away, I was like, oh my God, can I come see you? And do I have permission to come see you? Because it is a work site. So I grabbed he said, yeah, no problem. Come on down. So I had my steel toes already. I put my hard hat on. I got my glasses on. He showed me what he was working on. And I was like, oh my God, please let me take photos of you, because this is like an alumni pat on my back. Like, congratulations for being in your career now and being successful. And what a small world it is, you coming back and doing construction here at the school that you went to, right?
Yeah,
so like
absolutely.
That beyond measure is a reward. And this is also why when I worked at that other school, I didn't find like I was enough. So I worked there, but I only had a couple of years under my belt in the field. So every time I gave advice, I didn't want to give advice on what somebody taught me when I was a student. I wanted to give advice on how I applied what I'm doing when I was in the field. Because sitting in a booth at a table welding is not what you're going to end up doing the rest of your life, unless you work production and you sit with a hydraulic table and you are sitting down, you're doing TIG welding in a shop and you get a comfortable table. That job's not out there for everybody. But realistically, I needed to leave to have that field experience so that I can customize that relation with the student, saying, listen, this is how you're going to use it. This is the kind of problems you're going to have. Imagine, like a lot of employers love to do, they use brand new steel and they have you tack it up to really old, rusted holes, everything got steel. And now you need to do a fillet weld. Good luck. And like, I love that test on students because I want to see them freak out. How are you going to problem solve that? Now go. So seeing that success is just, like, I feel like my shoulders just like so amazing.
Awesome. If you could give advice to women wanting to go into this industry, what would it be?
Believe in yourself. Honestly, believe in yourself. Shoot for your passion. Shoot for your goals. Even if like you're like myself, who is just not sure, not 100%. I knew no matter what coming into this, I was someone who worked with my hands. I'm not book smart. Even to this day, I teach for a living. I'm not book smart. I give it to layman's terms because that's normally how the welder comes across. And I want to make sure that I found the core material that made sense. So do your education. Yes, go to school. You might not be book smart, but have that teacher, have that person explain it to you in layman's terms so that A and B makes sense to get to C. Like blueprints, know your blueprints. And then some. I just actually, before this podcast, I had to mark our blueprint tests. And I'm scratching notes all in there and making my little comments. You forgot to break the arm because there's prep involved on this piece. So you didn't forget to do that, Oh, it was a bevel, so you had to put single beds, those kind of things. So do your education, believe in yourself, do the research. I'd probably give you the biggest advice going into it. If this is something you really want to get into, don't cut corners. Don't just work for Jimmy and think that Jimmy's going to be random name. Think that Jimmy's going to put you through and do all this stuff, unless he actually is going to hire you on as an apprentice and take you on as an apprentice. Print out your logbook and get that guy or person that hires you to sign off on your hours as you're working for them. I am a Red Seal journey person, but I had a track back the wrong way. So even though I started out, I actually wasn't an official apprentice starting with him.
Oh, yep.
So I had to go back and I had to track back all my employers, grab that logbook. So yeah, but really get that logbook printed out. How about if you're not even sure what apprenticeship you want to do? Well, the Welder Common Core is the best to start out with because you can always be dual ticketed. You could be a welder and a boilermaker. You could be a welder and a sheet metal worker. You can be a welder and pipe fitter, a welder and an iron worker. There is also welding in those ones, but you can be dual ticketed. You can be 3 or 4 or 5, whatever you want to do.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I really, really, really appreciate your time to chat with me today. The goal here is to show anyone who's even considering this industry as, hey, something that women can do. You got to see women doing that work, right? And so that's so important. I really appreciate your time. Ultimately, all of this will hopefully, even if we only inspire one lady out there to try. Yeah, mission accomplished, and we did our due diligence, I think, to give back. So
not a problem at all. And for those people who are listening, if you have to take away anything from this today, number one, shoot for your goals and go on that social media, join those groups, type in all those keywords: women welding, trades in Canada, trades in the America, trades even in your, oh my God, I was just going to have a blank there. Trades in the area that you're from.
Absolutely.
But type those things in. Get yourself into it, get talking to those people, and you will find those mentors out there, and it's going to pump you up more. And one more thing is, do the research in the schooling you want to live at, because here at where I'm at is catered, like I said, to our local area. But if you don't plan on living here, then this might not be the best outcome for you. It might be a great starting point that you want to go. For us, Alberta is huge, and just like Texas kind of idea with the oil field, right? So this might be a great stepping stone to go that direction, but do your research in where you're going to educate yourself, or if you're going to do an apprenticeship, do your education on it, do your research in it, reach out to those mentors, and hopefully that will get you a better field.
It's amazing to see women doing what you're doing. I appreciate all women who jump into these industries because you are definitely a mentor for the future ladies and men. You're a mentor for the guys. So let's not forget, they need to see a wide variety of people capable and able, because I think that bolsters everybody's confidence at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, find someone that supports you. My husband, absolutely. That's why he's a keeper, because he supported me from day one. I was in relationships before as a welder, and I didn't have that same support. And they're just like, you know what? If you can't help that person you're with grow as that individual, then that's not the right person you should be with.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And definitely. Female in an industry or not, that's just relationship advice. You need to be with someone that will help you better yourself.
Nikki is truly an inspiration and shows that with perseverance and striving to go with what makes you happy, along with never giving up on your dreams, will land you in a place you truly love. Welding is in the blood, and I think her students are absolutely better off for having a teacher who's so passionate about the trade and has such a long-standing, amazing career. Nikki is another great example of women thriving in trades and now giving back to the next generation. At Level Up Stronger, we're striving to help women improve their lives, provide for their families, and build a career. And what better place than in the trades where women can be recognized for their competence, expertise, courage, and craftsmanship. We encourage all women to consider these industries. Talk to women like Nikki and get their perspective on how rewarding their experience has been. This has been another episode of Level Up Stronger. Join us next time for more Life of Women in Trades and discover how you too can level up stronger in your life. Thank you for joining us on Level Up Stronger. For references to resources mentioned in this episode and to receive updates on future podcasts, check us out on social media or at levelupstronger.com. And remember, each time we take risk, educate ourselves, and apply what we've learned to our lives, we level up stronger. Each time we level up stronger, we have the opportunity to reach back and contribute to someone else's success too.